Okay, we're back for the second video in the video series, just kind of intro to Java. Two options again, like I said, you have to do these tutorials. I'm in Eclipse here, you can see that, but all your code could be typed in this ideon.com, this online compiler as well, and that works fine. So first thing I'm going to do is a new Java project. I can go to project, Java project, either way, works fine. Project name, we'll call it logic Java. I'm going to cover if, else statements, and I'm going to cover while and for loops in this kind of video. So here we go. Next, and that all looks good, finish. First thing I want to do, open up my project, and inside there's a source. That's where I'm going to keep all my classes. So I'm going to go new class. This class I'm going to call main. I'm going to check this public static void main method, we need that in there, and I'm just going to call this com.educatesoft.java. No, let's go logic Java. It's like a reverse URL the way we name this kind of stuff. That doesn't matter, you can name that whatever you want. My website name is educatesoft.com. So I'm going to go here, finish, and I have that stub. It looks very much like the online compiler. We can do some stuff there. So first we're going to have we're just going to call integer number, and with that number I'm just going to put a number, let's go 35. So I'm going to set that value to 35, and then I just want to make a decision. So when an if statement, so if we're going to say number is greater than, so just a math symbol, is greater than, we'll say 40. Okay, and then we do curly brackets, open and close, so you can see that. So we have an if, and then inside the brackets we have a condition. If that condition, if number is greater than 40, okay, we want to display something, so system.out print line, we'll say the number is greater than 40, period. We want to display that if it's greater than 40, and then the basis of an if statement is else. Else, we want to say something else that's not true, and then so in this case we're going to go, I'm just going to speed this up, I'm just going to copy and paste here so I don't have to keep typing. Copy, paste, and I'm going to just say the number is less than 40. Okay, so we have a basic if-else statement. If that condition is true, which in this case it's false because this would be maybe some kind of UI variable coming in. Someone entered 35 somewhere. We're just simulating that right now because we're focused on the Java. We're going to either print it's greater than 40 or less than 40. And so let's just run our Java program. Okay, and it says the number is less than 40. So now let's just change this to 45. Run it again, see what we get. Make sure it's making that decision properly. The number is greater than 40. So now it's got that. Now what happens if we do 40 though? We know that that's going to be a problem, right? The number is less than 40. That is not true. So let's add another statement in here. So let's change this else into else if. Let's put another condition. Let's go number, and we got to do equal sign twice to compare two things. So if number is equal to 40, so this is an else if, so we can add an else if here. The number is, we'll say, equal to 40. Okay, and then we can do another else here, and then let's have this say the number is less than 40, and let's see if it's working properly now. Control V, the number is less than 40. So now if the number is equal to 40, it should say that. Number is greater than 40. If it's greater than 40, it should say that. And if it's less than 40, it should say that. So this is, you can string together many if-else statements if you want, but that's the basic format of this. So let's just go here, run this. The number is equal to 40. let's move it to 41. Run it again. Let's see what we get. The number is greater than 40. Move it to 39. And what do we got? The number is less than 40. So that's basic kind of computer programming logic decision making. If else statements we use all the time. So let's move on to the next one. So let's go to, let's make two variables. Let's work with a while statement. So in computer programming, we want to repeat the same task over a bunch of times. We can do that with either a for or a while loop. So let's go integer. Say we want to move our robots drive terrain somewhere. So let's go integer. Let's call this first one distance to travel. So we'll say that we had an input somehow, maybe it's a joystick or something, and we want the distance that we want to travel, let's say 9 meters. Okay, and then let's make another integer and call it distance traveled. Actual distance traveled right now is currently at 0. Okay, so we have two integer values. One is an input, one is measuring how far we've actually traveled. So the base of a while statement, we would write the keywords while, and then we'd put a condition in these kind of brackets that it generates for us. So let's say while distance traveled is less than distance to travel. We don't need another less than. And then we'd have curly brackets, just like kind of our if-else statement. Let's do something. So while it's less than, let's go system dot out dot. We'll say we put code in here normally to travel. So we'll say each time it loops through, we'll say it travels 1 meter. So I traveled 1 meter. Okay, so each time we're going to say normally we wouldn't have a system out print line. We'd have some code here that makes our robot travel 1 meter. Well, every time it travels 1 meter, we need to increase our distance traveled. So let's say distance traveled, and you could go equals distance traveled plus 1. So if it just traveled 1 meter, we could say that would work as well. There's actually a shorthand way to do this in any kind of C-based program, Java, C#, whatever. We can go distance traveled plus plus, and what that does is adds 1 meter to that distance traveled integer value. Okay, so it's going to loop through, it's going to add 1 meter, it's going to check to see if that condition is true again. Well, if it's a 2, it's going to be still less than 9. It's going to loop through again, and so what should happen when I run this program is it should display this 9 times. Now, we want to display kind of the total distance traveled at the end. So let's go and let's just take our system print line. I'll show you how to concatenate a string here in a second too. So what we're going to do is here the total distance traveled is, and then colon, and then what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to put a little plus in here. So this is going to bring together 2 strings or concatenate 2 strings, and we're going to say string dot value of, in this case we want the distance traveled. And type in that text, and then that should tell us the total distance traveled. So it should say this: I traveled 1 meter 9 times, and then it should say my total distance traveled is this. If I programmed it right, let's just see. So, and that's exactly what it did. So it said I traveled 1 meter, I traveled 1 meter 9 times, and then it says the total distance traveled is 9. I didn't put meter in there. I could have put another string there. And just to do that, let's just clean that up. And I could just put spacebar meters. And let's see how that looks. Yeah, it looks good. So you can see I can put together a bunch of strings very easily. Yeah, total distance traveled is 9 meters. So you can see basic while loop. Now let's just kind of switch this over to for loop. So where a while loop only takes one really thing, and that's just the condition, okay, that it's going to loop while. A for loop takes not only a condition, but it also, you can initialize a variable in there. So let's just move this sucker from the top here and initialize it right within. Just going to copy. I didn't even need to add a colon because I got a colon there already. And move that inside. And everything's separated by a colon inside here. So we have integer distance traveled, and then now I need it on the other side. I'm going to separate by another colon. Distance traveled, and I can add my increment there. So I'm going to get rid of the increment here. And guess what? I forgot to switch this to a for loop. So I mean, that's no wonder it's like, why are you giving me 3 arguments? Okay, so that's the difference between a for and a while loop. Is notice the difference there. I moved my initialization of my variable from outside of the for loop just to inside, because sometimes we just have a variable that you don't want it operating outside of the for loop at all. So we just want this in here. Distance traveled is, while distance traveled is still less than distance to travel, which we're going to put in here, which is our input, and then we move our increment to the end. So it has 3 parts. It has initialization, we have in the middle, we have the condition that it's going to loop while, and then you have increment that's going to increment each time. So in lots of ways that should be simpler. The one problem that we have out here is it can't see distance traveled anymore because it's only within the for loop. It's called scope, so it's only in that scope. So let's put another variable just in. Let's call this variable up here integer total. We'll initialize it to 0, but then we're going to change that. Integer total, and then just inside here, let's just go total equal distance traveled. So the scope of this total is outside of that variable, and we're just going to set it to that as it loops through anyways. And then we just got to change this to total. And this is going to be a for loop that works just the same as the while loop. You can see how the difference between the two, but they serve really the same purpose. 2 ways to do it, and this shows 8 meters. So why would this one show 8 and the other one show 9? Well, we could say maybe I should have set this to I'm going to set that. Let's just change this to greater than or equal to. Let's see what that does. Let's see if that gets our 9 times through. Run. Yeah, 9 meters. So what it was doing is it would only loop through here, guys, until it was less than. It wouldn't loop through that last time. So you can see that is set up better and working just fine. So though that's a good intro to both if-else statements and then for and while loops. Next video we're going to move on to some functions. We'll see you then.